I'm a wife, mom to a 2.5-year-old daughter, 7-month-old son, and 2 fur babies. I work full-time for an energy company. My name is Amber, and I'm a miraculous mama.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and we believe in empowering women through storytelling and education, and I'm so glad that you are here with us. If you are listening, I would be 41 weeks today if I have not already had the baby. So I am pre-recording some episodes like I've been telling you, so I am not sure what the future holds. So I'm excited to let you guys in when we do have the baby and to catch you up on everything, but I will be taking a couple weeks off, which is why I've recorded some content in advance for you guys to listen to. I'm super excited about today's guest. I have Britt Nilsson from The Bachelor on, and we dive into pregnancy. We talk about eating disorders. We talk about our spiritual lives, postpartum. We just have such a great conversation. I'm so thankful for her realness and rawness with us, just diving deep and being real about pregnancy and motherhood and just the hard lessons that life gives us. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab her and start the interview. All right, everyone, I have Britt Nilsson Byrne here. You guys all fell in love with her on The Bachelor and watched her on that show. And she is going to be talking with us today about pregnancy. And it's really cool because she recently had a baby. And I'm going to be having a baby. I mean, by the time the podcast comes out, I may have already had it. I'm 39 weeks today. So,
oh my gosh.
But I have to apologize because my acid reflux is out of control today. So I'm like, it's really, really bad. I've been trying everything and I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's real life.
It is. But thank you so much for agreeing to come on and to talk with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Yeah. So since most people know you from The Bachelor, let's just touch on that because anyone who listens to my podcast knows I had a horrible experience on the show. And
same. No, just kidding.
And
kidding, not kidding. But.
Right. But it's definitely a weird world. And it's something that I have...
To say the very least.
Right. And it's something that I've since completely removed myself from. So I would just love to know a little bit of your experience or how it's shaped who you are today.
You know what's so interesting? It's for me, I mean, was it a horrible experience? In some ways, yes. There were very, very hard parts. I will never lie about that. But I also feel like there was just a reason for all of the madness. You know what I mean? God I feel so thankful that it happened. Had I known what it was going to be, I wouldn't have said yes. I was like, oh, we're going to travel and romance and I'm going to make best friends, and then I was like, oh, that was really rough. That wasn't what I thought. But God just used it, and actually being disliked by so many people and actually not able to defend myself. Because, contractually, you can't say hey, that had nothing to do with what happened. You have to be zip the lip.
Yeah.
So having to be going through being falsely accused and disliked by people, it's not really something that happens in your regular life if you're just a normal person, And having to go through that, it was oh my gosh, I was forced into the word. I was forced to rely on my friends. I was forced to be vulnerable. I was forced to just look at parts of me where I was oh wow, I need validation more than I thought, or whatever it is. There's a million layers, but I mean, it'll grow you up really quick. That is for sure. Just you think you're healthy and then you're oh wow, maybe I'm not if I don't have all these things that I'm very used to make me feel good. I don't, oh wow, where do I dig deep to find confidence or just whatever, So it was very shaping and I'm grateful for it. And then, a lot of cool things happen because then you have a voice and you can speak about things that matter. And that was another cool thing that came out of it. But yeah, I had a rough go, and it sounds like you did as well. So
yeah, it just wasn't my cup of tea.
I get it. And how long ago were you on?
I was on Nick's season. So
okay.
Yeah, and it was not a great experience, and I get the whole not being able to defend yourself, especially the way that I was edited and depicted and like words dubbed in that I never even said and all sorts of stuff.
Girl, same. I have so much grace for people now. Like when people are like, oh, that's someone on TV or they're like, oh, that's a bad person. I'm like, no, you don't know. They might be amazing. You don't know. Editing is crazy. I'm like, a show is edited, but you don't know how, anyways, I feel you.
Right.
It's giving me so much grace for people. Like even in magazines, I'm like, no, you don't know. They're probably a sweetheart. Just don't. Mm-hmm. Don't judge.
No, for sure. Yeah. And it does give you insight into that world. And like, since then we've both removed ourselves kind of from, we're like not in the Bachelor scene, you were on,
right.
You had much more airtime than I did, but like just kind of getting out of that world because you can kind of see some of the toxicity, I guess, in it.
Sure. And I mean, it's so interesting because I felt like I was supposed to do it. And looking back, I'm like, I know that I was, and I'm sure you're exactly the same way, but it is, I'm like, it's not exactly in line with how I do life or my morals or even my purpose or the way that I view, even romance or whatever, but it's just like, God put it before us and we did it. And now it's like, but I don't want to live that for the rest of my life. And so I do feel it's great to talk to someone who's kind of on the same thing where it's like, it was an adventure that I did, but it's not going to define me until I die. I'm like, I also have many other things that are important in life. And it sounds like you do too. So it's great to meet you. I'm just like, I feel like we're soul sisters. It's a very weird, specific world that you understand. So I'm like, you get me. You get me.
Definitely a weird world. That's for sure. And I mean, like you said, it's given you a platform to talk about so many other things. And I mean, it definitely can, you attract the people who like need to hear your voice for sure. Like on those things that you stand up for. And I'd love, I mean, we're going to dive into like your pregnancy and your birth and all of that. And one thing that you've been very open about is that you struggled with an eating disorder. And that's something I've shared a lot on the podcast as well. And I'd love to just hear how you found healing.
Yeah. Well, it was a process as most things like that are. I mean, some people can be healed in an instant and I'm all for that. I believe for it, but that wasn't my journey. And I think that's kind of because I think coming out of something, it's great to be able to share how you came out. And if you're just healed like that, then, it's not a story you could share and it's not as helpful to other people that are going through it. But yeah, for me, it's been most of my life. I haven't had a regular relationship with food. And actually, it turned into bulimia in college years. And then I actually was doing pretty well. But then on the show, it kind of reared its ugly head back. As you know, eating disorders have a tendency to come up when you're feeling stressed, come up when you're feeling... and honestly, like I didn't know everything that was going on behind the scenes, but I think your spirit just picks up on like, ooh, it's dicey. You know what I mean? Like I just felt anxious and I don't normally feel anxious anyways. So also there's just food everywhere all the time. As you also know, it's just like crafty everywhere, like just food. And you're stressed, you're not sleeping, you're being judged, it's everything. It's like the perfect, the perfect storm for someone with food problems. So it kind of came back. And then I also have other addiction problems like alcohol and things. So at the time I was sober from alcohol also. So I didn't even have that to rely on. So I was like, obviously just eating more and more, and then you're scared and you're there for like 3 months and you're like, I can't be fat and the stress on TV is 10 million people watching me. And so anyways, I started throwing up, and even though I was mic'd. And so I was like terrified that I would be caught, and that made me more anxious, and it just snowballed. And by the time it was over and I went home, I was like, oh no, like I'm fully back operating under this darkness, like this is fully got its claws around me again, which was just like, oh no, you just feel like, oh. And so what really helped me, honestly, is I went to, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's essentially a 12-step, but it's like the Christian version. So for me as a Christian, it just was way more my style because I've been to other, AA is amazing. I also have a lot of respect for people that do that, and I did it as well. But it's more broad and it wants to be, open for everyone to come, which I think is really beautiful the way they designed it. But it talks about higher power. And for me, I'm like, my higher power is Jesus. Like Holy Spirit is what talks to me. And so I'm allowed to say that in these meetings, without offending anyone or making them feel uncomfortable. So that just really worked for me to be totally honest, totally vulnerable. And I just went through the steps. Like I did the work. Like I had to forgive people, including myself. I had to write down like, what are all my character defects that I need to have healed that are leading me into being bulimic? It's not just because I think I'm fat, you know, and that's the thing is like, yeah, society tells us things about our bodies that I think are really sick and bad, but that's not the only thing that's operating, right? Like there's a lot of internal stuff because society is still telling me that, but I'm okay with myself now. You know, like I haven't changed the world around me. I changed my internal world. And so Celebrate Recovery was extremely helpful for me. Just being in a group of women who are also, you know, like I'm seeing these like yourself, like it's so crazy to me to think that you would have an eating disorder. So I'm just looking at your face. I'm like, you're so beautiful. Like, how could she, you know, and I think that's what the world thinks is like, that these people don't have problems. But when you sit in a group of women, you're just like, oh my gosh, you struggle with this and you do. It's just like, it just knocks the shame out of the room where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one that this is coming against. And it doesn't mean I'm this broken, hopeless, totally different than everybody else, like loser. It's like, oh no, this is some spirit that's coming against me and I can say no to it. I have the power to do that because you're doing it. And so it was just so healing for me. Going through the steps with women was just awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So helpful. Yeah. Really good.
For sure. I've heard my mom was actually, she would always tell me, you should do Celebrate Recovery. You should do it. And I never did, but I know a lot about it.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's so cool. And again, like everybody has a different route. And then I had other healing from other places. Like God can use a lot of things. That's what was the most helpful for me. Cause it was, you know, what I was meant to do. So there are other ways you can get the same type of healing. You know, truth is truth. Like, you know, there's a lot of things that are similar, but I would highly recommend it. It was awesome. It was very helpful.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break because this school year is going to be unlike any other. I know some people, their kids are going back to school. Other people are logging into a classroom from home. Some parents are homeschooling. And as parents, it can be very time consuming to give your kids the extra help that they might need this school year. But I have an awesome product to tell you guys about. The company Kiwi Co. is absolutely amazing, and they can deliver a science fair art class project right to your door. And I'm actually really surprised how much I have loved it as an adult. So I gifted it to my niece and she did the solar system one, and it is so cool. You get all the different pieces and you're putting together this project and you just see their minds like working and they come to life seeing this thing that they took from scratch and put together. And it was so much fun. There's actually quite a few other ones that I want to try. So I'm just going to keep gifting it to my nieces and nephews so I can try it too. And your child gets, they're super cool hands-on science and art and geography projects delivered to their door every single month. And they'll be so excited to see a package arrive in the mail for them. Kids hardly ever get mail. So a box with their name on it is so much fun, and you'll be surprised at how high quality the materials are too. And you can do your part to encourage your children to be innovators and creative thinkers, and they won't believe what they can build and accomplish with Kiwi Co. And it can be hard as a parent to find creative and new things to keep your children busy and challenged, especially right now. And Kiwi Co. does the legwork for you so you can spend quality time tackling projects together. There are different crates for kids of all ages, so there's something for every kid on your list, even for yourself. Because I know for me, I am a kid at heart. Kiwi Co. is redefining learning with hands-on projects that build confidence, creativity, and critical thinking skills. There's something for every kid or kid at heart at Kiwi Co. Get 30% off your first month plus free shipping on any crate line at kiwico.com/mamas. That's KIWICO.com/mamas. Now back to the episode. I remember before, my biggest breakthrough for healing, one thing I would do is I would fall asleep every single night listening to the song Break Every Chain and just pray it over my life and be like, okay, I know you can break every chain in my life. You have control, because I just remember being stuck in the disease and at times being on the bathroom floor crying and being like, God, take this from me. Why am I doing this? Why? You have the power to heal me. Why aren't you just healing me? Just take it away. But you do have to do the work. And that's the hard part. It's
Right.
I can give you healing. Maybe you're not accepting it because you're not willing to love yourself. You're not willing to
That's
forgive.
right.
You're not willing to like admit that you are worthy, you know? So it definitely is like so much of that work.
Oh, girl, I totally relate. Yes, yes. Because that's what I always say, because, you know, I had faith in many of those. And I totally, girl, I remember literally lying in the bathroom floor. You look in the mirror, your face is all swollen. You're just like, what is wrong with me? And, you know, that's the enemy speaking to you. What's wrong? You're
Right.
broke, whatever. But if you're agreeing with that, you can't get free. And it's like, it's not God speaking that over you, but you really have to do the work to see it. And it is work. And like, God does ask us to co-labor with him. He doesn't always just magically like, boop, because there's so much. I mean, I'm such a healthier person for it. You know what I mean? Like I actually say now, and I'm sure you would agree, I'm like thankful that was my story. Like I wouldn't wish it on anybody else because it's very painful. And I wouldn't choose it for myself. But having come out of it, everything that you learn and what you have to share, it's like, yeah, that was exactly what it was supposed to be, you know? So God will use it, but you have to do the work. It doesn't just go away. And it's so deep, but it's so prevalent is the other thing. And so I'm so glad you're talking about this on your podcast. I'm just so proud of people like you. I'm like, yeah, share it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So good.
Yes. So I would love to talk about then, because I know, like, I guess going into pregnancy then, because I haven't really dealt with my eating disorder for a few years. Like I feel like free from it. Like the thoughts wouldn't come up. I could eat things guilt-free. I didn't really deal with it. And then I got pregnant and my body started changing. Right. And it was like that phase before my belly had popped and I looked pregnant, but I was like growing and gaining weight but I was being really healthy. And I'm like, it was out of your control.
Like, we're doing something else.
Right. And it's like completely out of your control. And I just struggled with some of the thoughts of, oh my gosh, I feel fat. I don't, just like kind of going through that. And it wasn't until I was like really, really pregnant that I was like, oh, I'm cute,
Right. Totally. Cause then it's like, oh, everyone knows there's this little person inside of me and it's wonderful and everyone's excited for this little miracle. But yeah, like before, and even for me, in my case, after, it's like, you just look not yourself and you're like, okay, I'm done. This isn't cute. I don't like this. It's not like Precious. People aren't excited for this.
Right. Yeah.
I just don't feel like me. Yeah, girl, I totally get it.
Yeah. So how did you deal with that, I guess? With, I guess, having a past with an eating disorder, but like just staying strong through it and knowing that it's just like temporary bodily changes.
Yeah. You know what? For me, actually, just the way that my pregnancy was, I actually, at the beginning of my pregnancy I didn't gain weight because I was so sick. I just physically, I was never throwing up, but I was just so nauseous. So that didn't come up for me. And then once I had a belly, then I had a belly. But for me, I'm experiencing exactly what you're talking about now on the other end. Because after, and I'm sure, people that have babies know this, but I just wasn't totally prepared. That like when you have the baby, you don't go back to your 18-year-old body. You're like, oh, it's, you still have a belly and you still have all of the weight that came along with the pregnancy. Especially for me, I gained a lot of weight, kind of like where you're at, which you look amazing, by the way.
Oh,
but I just gained a lot of weight, in my face and everything. So after having the baby, now that you don't have this little bundle of joy inside of you that's so exciting, you just are left with this like kind of giant belly that's now like empty but still there, and your uterus has to shrink, and that takes like quite a while. Like mine still is. And over that I have fat. And so for me, like it wasn't right away, because at first I was so just like, oh my gosh, no, my daughter, no. I was like, oh my gosh, and you're getting to know her, and breastfeeding was taking up all of my, thought, But after the newness wears off, you're kind of left with, okay, it's been like a month, so it's not like fun and exciting anymore. And I'm just stuck in this body that I really don't like. Like this is a body shape that I do not feel comfortable in. Like it's summer. I don't, I'm just like, this is like triggering me in all sorts of ways. And it was so interesting, actually, like probably a week or two ago, my husband came home from work and he was discouraged about something at work. And so we prayed through some stuff for him. And then after we were done, I was like, do you want to hear what I'm discouraged about today? And then I just started crying, and I was like, I'm hearing these old lies that I haven't really subscribed to for quite a long time. you're fat and not only that, but that means you're not valuable.
Mm-hmm.
That means you're cheap. That means no one will respect you and you can't respect yourself. Like you're just going to be a fat mom in pajamas forever. You're never going to be cool or fun or relevant or like enjoy life again. You're just, all these things like, and it along with it, the heaviness that comes, just the like kind of hopeless feeling. And so anyway, so what we did and how I get through that. And this is just our little thing we do. It's actually like a tool. We do inner healing workshops. And so it's like a tool we teach, but we always use it. And it's called 123 Skidoo, which is a silly name for like sending it away. But essentially what we do is we just ask Holy Spirit, we'll just quiet ourselves and be like, for me, I'm like, Holy Spirit, what is the enemy bringing to me? Like, what is he speaking to me? And so I write down all the things I just said.
Mm-hmm.
You're fat. You'll never be valuable again. All the lies that come up. And it was like 30. It was like a full page, because that's like it's a weak point for me. It's, there's cracks he can get in. And so we write all those down and then we just nail them to the cross. Like I nail the lie to the cross. I nail a spirit of hopelessness to the cross. I nail a spirit of discouragement or the lie that, nail it to the cross, send it away, break agreements with it. Cause I've been agreeing with it all day, which is why I feel like crap because I've been, mentally saying, yeah, that is kind of true. Or that feels almost true, subconsciously, of course. Nail them to the cross, break agreements and just repent of joining, like turn away from joining with that like stuff. Cause it's not God's thoughts about me and it's not the thoughts I want to think. And then send them away. And then you just listen and let God replace the truth. And he started telling me things that are the total opposite. Like, what you're doing is so much more important than how you look. You know what I mean? And that, but hearing it from the Lord, you really are able to receive it. And I was just weeping because you feel the Holy Spirit. And he's just like, if you start dieting now and you aren't able to feed your daughter anymore, because I'm breastfeeding, he's like, you think you're discouraged now? That would be true discouragement. That would be true pain. If you're not able to be a mom to her because you're self-obsessed, that would be true pain, and he's like, you're beautiful. This is amazing. And he's also, and also just speaking like, God speaks to me in funny ways. Like, it's almost like he's like your brother or something. And he's like, also, girl, it's been like 7 weeks. Right. You don't have to have a bikini body. Like, that's not even, kind of like chill out. Like, just like he's like my funny dad. And he's like, girl, chill. Like,
Right.
So we prayed through it and just writing down the things that God spoke to me, which would be different for you, different for anybody. But, for me, just the things that I needed to hear to replace that stuff. And then I just write that down and I meditate on that intentionally when those things try to come back, because now I have ammo, like this is the truth to replace the lie that, whatever, everybody's going to have different. But so anyway, for me, it's like, once you do that, the lies will still come back, but that they're lies. And so you can kind of laugh at them and be like, oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah, no, I'm not going to agree with that right now.
Right.
That's not true. And also just for everyone to feel hopeful just in life. Like I'm feeling, that was like probably 2 weeks ago. And it just happens. Like I'm getting back to my normal. I'm not dieting at all. And it just, you slowly get back. And I feel like I can see my body getting back to like, oh, that's what I look like. So even in the natural, like you're good. It's not going to be forever. And there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't thought too much about the postpartum. Well, I love your 123 Skidoo thing. I wrote that down. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. We should do that. But
it's so good. It's just, I mean, it's what I think people like. It's just a healthy way to live, but it's just like in steps so you can follow it. So it's really helpful. Like I'm sure you do that in your life, but just to have a step and like an operating system, you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that now.
Right.
And it's quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I used to write things down and burn them, but I haven't done that in a very long time.
But it's very similar. It's a very similar. Exactly. Yep. Yep. Very similar.
I need to get back some of the, like I used to be really good at journaling and I just haven't done anything in a very long time, but.
Well, yeah, being pregnant and being a mom, it's like everything changed. I get that. You're like, I don't have the luxury of all the little self things I used to do, like journaling. I'm like, what's that?
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
All right. We're going to take a quick second because we're talking in this episode about being a new mom and everything like that. And do you know what's so important is quality sleep. And with fall right around the corner, what a better time to refresh your space with a new season and feel all cozy. And I have the perfect product for you, and that is Brooklinen. Home of the internet's favorite sheets, Brooklinen's got over 50,000 5-star reviews and counting. We're talking all new, super soft bedding, towels, even loungewear. They have such amazing products on their site. And they have something for everybody. So Vito and I recently just got a new bed, and so we needed new sheets. And I got them from Brooklinen, and they are so comfortable. They are cool. They're very cozy. They have tons of different colors and prints that you can choose from. My favorite's just the classic white sheets and duvet cover. Oh my gosh, it's like crawling into a little bit of heaven every single night. And like I said, about to become a new mom, sleep is so important to me. And I think your bed is your room is your sanctuary, and your bed is just like that place where you should be able to rest, which is why I love the Brooklinen sheets. Their Labor Day event is coming up this next weekend, and it is a big one. So don't miss out on big savings on all things sheets, towels, loungewear, and so much more. And if you can't wait, you can get 10% off your first order and free shipping right now when you use promo code MAMAS only at brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com. Brooklinen, everything you need to live your most comfortable life. I haven't thought too much like about postpartum, but I was talking to my husband the other night, and I'm like, it's going to be so weird. Like when the baby comes out, like there's a living baby in here right now, which is weird. And it's going to come out.
So crazy, right? Yes.
And then what is like, I'm like, then I'm just going to have this belly that's there, you know, it's like a deflated balloon that my baby was in. And
exactly,
you know, I think I feel pretty like mentally prepared because working as like a birth doula, it's like I know the physiological part. Right.
Yes.
And I'm not too worried about it. And I feel like I did so much self-work before with being confident in myself and like
so good.
Being confident in a body that wasn't the one that I even had like when I was in the thick of my eating disorder, you know, like being comfortable being a bigger number on this scale, which now I mean, I hadn't weighed myself in years, but
same. Yes. When they were weighing me, I was like, oh, this is so interesting. Cause I just also stopped doing that. I was like, that's that's funny.
I know. But then now like being 9 months pregnant, so I'm like, holy, that's a big number.
You're like, oh, that's a number I've never, girl, same. I was like, oh, it was almost like funny to me. I'd be with my husband. I'll turn around. I was like, hey.
Right. Yeah.
It's everything about pregnancy is a trip. Are you having a boy or a girl, just out of curiosity? Do you know?
We don't know.
That is so fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We're excited.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
okay, keep me updated.
No instincts either. I have no I go back and forth all the time.
Fun.
Yeah, right now I'm feeling girl, but we'll see. So we're like, it's probably going to be a boy because we can't think of a boy name. And we have our girl name picked out. So we're like, it's going to be a boy. And we're going to be like, what are we going to name you? I don't know.
You just ask him when he comes out. What do you want to be, buddy? Oh, that's so fun. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah, it's exciting.
That's great.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Like, just your being so open and like sharing your process of how you battle, I guess, those thoughts and everything. Because I know as women that, like you said, there's like at the beginning that like the messages from the media and from whatever, like I had an old coworker reach out to me this last year and she wants to audition for The Bachelor. And the first thing she said was,
you're like, are you sure?
Right. I know. She said, do you have to be skinny to go on The Bachelor? Because my friend told me like, you have to be skinny to go on the show. And I was like, I mean, I don't watch it anymore, but if you see everyone who's on there, they're pretty tiny. And
I was like, it's not in writing, but I've never thought about it, but kind of, unfortunately, kind of.
Well, I was the thickest girl of my season that was on. And I mean, it definitely, you do see certain body types on there. And it's like, so even people watching reality shows, it's not really reality. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's so true. Or Instagram. I mean, I'm just thinking like, you know, and especially thinking of having a child, I'm like, what is it going to be like for this little generation growing up with social media where your whole world is like posting a picture of what you look like at that moment and getting likes or not? I'm like, I know how hard of a time I had, and that wasn't even invented, you know? So I'm just like, oh, Jesus, take the wheel. Yeah.
With the kids, help me. You know, I'm like, oh gosh. I mean, and of course it will be fine, you know, but you're going to have to be really on it. Like, you know, and really just speaking life over them. Like, This is what's, and even with my daughter, I'm so, cause she's beautiful to me, of course, like I'm her mom, like, and I want to say you're beautiful all the time. And I do say it a lot, but I also like, she's a baby and, you know, who knows what she's absorbing, but I'm like, and you're strong and you're so smart. And, you know, and I'm trying to be like, there are a lot of things, you know, cause the gift of beauty is great. And I don't want to ever diminish that. Cause I think God gives us the gift of beauty and we don't want to act like that's bad. But also, especially for a girl, I want to be like, there's a lot of other things that make you really valuable too. Like you're kind and da-da-da-da-da. So it's just, oh man, it's going to be a wild ride. We have a wild ride ahead of us.
For sure. So I would love for you to share, I guess, did you have like a birth plan going into it or were you just super open?
Both.
Okay. Yeah. Which is good.
So yes and yes. So yes and yes. And you know what? I have so many friends and I'm a little crunchy. I'm not the crunchiest, but I have a lot of friends who are like, do a home birth and da-da-da. And I really respect people that do. I actually think it's so cool. I've heard like the best stories of people who are like, I just had it in my bathtub and like my family was in the kitchen having snacks and cheering and my husband was in the bathtub with me. And I'm like, that is so romantic and amazing. For me, every time I prayed about it, I felt like I was supposed to be in the hospital. I just did. And like, you know, well, that's not as sexy. I was like, that's what I feel like I'm supposed to do. So that's what we did. And, you know, I did a little birth plan and I went to this, the health place that I've been going to, like my birthing crew are all amazing. Like they're so sweet. So they're like, fill out your birth plan, but just know that it's probably not going to end up anything like this. And so I felt very prepared in that way. Like, don't go in thinking it's going to be, you know, 2 hours of this and then 2 of this and then, you know. And so for me, actually I was way overdue. Like Noah was not coming out. I actually had to, like, I wasn't dilating at all. I would go into my checkups and I'm sure you've heard of a Foley bulb. That you put in. I don't know if people listening haven't. It's essentially like a little saline balloon that they just stick into your cervix to kind of weigh it down and begin contractions. If you're not opening up, which I wasn't. And so I got that done. And
how far along were you when you did that?
Like almost 2 weeks. Like it was getting
almost
down
42,
to the end.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. 2 weeks past. Yep, exactly. So I had that. And then over that night I had contractions and I was like, oh, this is like what all the other people have been feeling this whole time. You know, I'm like, oh, good. My body's working. And so I went in, they took it out and they measured me and they're like, oh, you're at 5 centimeters. And I was like, okay, great. So I'll just start having contractions naturally. And I felt really peaceful about it, but I never did again. And so they had my induction date set and I went in and it was actually 2 days after 42 weeks. I went in to be induced in the morning and I hadn't had any more contractions. And then the nurse measured me. I'm on the hospital bed and she's like, you're actually back down to 2.
Oh my gosh.
And
what?
And she's like, I've never seen that before. She's like, your cervix is actually going back, you know, like she's like, it's regressing. And I was like, you know, and it's just one of those things where it's totally like a mind battle. And you're just like, do not go into fear right now. Yeah. Don't go into panic. Don't go in, you know what I mean? Just, I was like, oh my gosh. So I was like, okay, interesting news. Like, where do I put that? I don't know. But so anyways, I don't know why exactly that was, except it crossed my mind and I'll never know, but I actually got healing for, because I used to have, I got HPV and I had actually the beginning of cervical cancer. And so I got a biopsy and stuff, but they're like, you need to keep getting checked and, you know, all this stuff. And I actually was prayed for and had healing for it. And I had someone pray for my cervix and like bringing it back to new. So I was like, maybe I just have a really fresh cervix and it's just like, it's just so tight. It's just so tight. It won't go because God healed. So I'll never know. But anyway, so I have an interesting cervix that was not dilating. So then they gave me Pitocin, they induced me and I labored naturally for like 8 hours. And it was like contractions every 2 minutes, like a minute and some long. And I was just, you know, doing all the like, yes, Jesus, this is good. She's coming down, like trying to, you know, positive every time. But by about 8 hours, like I was literally, my body was shaking and it was just like mentally, I couldn't keep it up anymore. So I was planning on not having an epidural. That was my whole thing. I was like, I'm going to go natural. Women have been doing this forever. You know, my husband's here. God's here. I'm going to have my worship music on. It's going to be this like amazing female experience. And then like literally my body is shutting down and I'm like dying. So I was like, can I have an epidural? You know, I was just like, sorry. I like feel like I'm in a movie where you're like, okay, I'm good. Get the epidural. So after 8 hours of those contractions, I just, my body was having a really hard time. in my mind. And so, also they had to break my water, and there was meconium in it, little baby poop, because I was so late. She's been pooping in there for like 2 days. So they're also telling me if she's not out soon, we're going to have to do a C-section. So there was just so many points where I was like, don't give in to fear. Like, just, Jesus, like, this is your plan. And I was like, even if I have to get a C-section, that's okay. You're going to be with me. But I'm like afraid of blood and surgery. So I was just like, no, but okay, but no, but okay. Yeah. So it's just this mental battle. So I got an epidural, and then it was about 12 more hours. And then I pushed for 1 hour, like, of active labor. And to be honest, it was like incredible. Like 15 minutes after I got the epidural, I was like shouting. I was like, I want a t-shirt that says everybody get an epidural, because I was then able to rest and actually enjoy and be a part of this thing, instead of just like these waves of like, don't give in to fear. Ow, 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 ow. Don't give in to fear. Ow, 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 for 8 hours. It was just exhausting. And I'm actually glad I went through it, because I was like, that's a human experience. And to me, that's always worth having. But getting an epidural was such a relief. I was like, oh my God. And the nurses aren't allowed to force you to do anything, but I was like, you guys should have forced me to do this. Why do you let me sit on the bed in pain for 8 hours? You crazy. But anyway, so that was really a relief for me, for me and everybody. It's so personal for everybody, but I kind of had to humble myself, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take it. And then I was so grateful. So then even my pushing, I'm like, I had one nurse named Lawanda was holding one foot, and Jeremy, my husband's holding my other foot, and I'm pushing, and we're like laughing because I'm not feeling any pain. I'm able to laugh. Like, her head's coming out, and they're like giving her a mohawk and making jokes, and I'm pushing, and it was just such a joyful, wonderful experience. And I didn't feel the ring of fire. Like, I didn't feel, all of these things that people, have been scaring me with for the past few months. And so for me, it was just, it was beautiful. It was a really wonderful experience. And then when she came out, they had to suck all the meconium out of her. And they were just amazing. So for me, like, I had to be in a hospital, and I also had to have antibiotics because I was getting a fever because there was poop in me. So for me, like, God just knew that that's how mine was going to go down. And so a hospital birth was great for me, but I've heard great things about other ways, but for my first, I was like, that was as it was meant to be. And it ended up being great. It was a wonderful experience.
That's good. That's good. It's always nice when you talk to people, though, and they are able to say it was a great experience, because that's not everyone's. And also the, like you said, the part where you're not giving into fear and staying flexible, because like, birth is so unpredictable, and you don't know how it's going to go. Like, you have your vision of what you want, but that's not always how it goes. So just being open and knowing, like, okay, like, my baby's going to come to me the right way at the right time with the right people in the room, and stuff like that. So trusting is definitely hard, which is something I'm working on, because my husband, he's so scared that I'm going to be disappointed in like what happens, because I know so much,
Sure.
And I've been to so many births. So he's like, so nervous that I'm going to like be disappointed or something. And I'm like, babe, I'm pretty open, like, I know I've been at enough to know that
you're probably more open. Yeah.
I'm like, I know it's not going to go perfect. Like how you
that
perfectly
is perfect.
envision.
Like that's your perfect. Exactly. Your perfect keeps changing. It changes every couple minutes when the nurse says something else. You're like, okay, and we're going here. And it's to me also like, it was such a bonding experience for me and my husband. Like, I'm so excited for you guys. Cause I mean, there's just nothing like it. Cause he is watching you do something that is so unbelievable. And it's like, out of you comes this new spirit, soul, and body that is like the connection of you two makes someone who's never existed before. It's so amazing. And for me, like, because of the virus, my husband was the only person allowed in the room. You only have one person. And that was even new. And I'm so grateful that I didn't have to do it alone. He was with me. But it made it really cool and like romantic, because it was just like, oh my gosh, we're making a life. Like, this is, you know what I mean? And so we just kept looking at each other like, this is wild. This is so wild. Like, I'm just excited for you guys to have that. It's so fun. It's so cool. Yeah. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I'm so excited. So then
and for you guys and for you guys to get to find out if it's a boy or girl together at the same moment. That's amazing.
I have it.
Anyway, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. I have it on my birth plan that he's the one that gets to tell me the gender. So hopefully nobody else like shouts it out first, but I'm hoping I want him to be the one to tell me.
Oh, you just tell him when you're pushing, say, don't say a word, don't say a word, don't make a face.
Right. I know. I just don't know if I'll remember, but I've also been at a birth where like the dad called out the wrong gender because the baby's legs were closed and
oh my gosh,
if it's a girl, sometimes when they're born, like things are swollen and stuff
Very
like that.
swollen,
So
right.
he thought that there was like a tiny pair of balls. And I'm like, no, that's a vagina.
Oh
He's like, it's a boy. I'm
gosh.
like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not a boy. So.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
We'll see. We'll see if he calls it out and if it's the right gender, and we'll see how it all plays out. But we're excited. We're super excited. I'd love to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just said, I bet. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'd love to hear, I guess, about your transition into motherhood and how you feel like maybe that's even enhanced your relationship with your partner or caused stress on it, or how has postpartum been for you?
You know what's interesting? I mean, I could see it both ways. For me, it's been such a positive experience. It's just he's a champion. Like she's so great. It's been awesome. But you know, I remember at the hospital they were doing, which they have to now. And it's good that they do. I just remember they were heavily interviewing me. Like almost every nurse would keep saying, you know, do you have suicidal thoughts or have you had trouble in this area, or how would you rate your mood? And you're taking all these quizzes and stuff. And at the time I was like, I'm good. Like, you know, I'm fine. But thanks for asking, you know, and then going home, you know, after we did a day in the hospital, going home, I really started understanding. I was like, oh, this is real. And I never went into postpartum depression, but the emotions are just so very heightened by the hormones. And for me, I had heightened emotions during pregnancy, as I'm sure you're experiencing. But it was more for me. It felt heavier for me afterwards. Because I think it's compounded by not sleeping through the night. Mm-hmm. And you don't really get a break. I mean, I think that they used to, and maybe they still do in some hospitals, take your baby away from you for one night and they have like a night nurse. But for me, it's basically you labor all night, you're awake for a lot of hours where you should be sleeping, doing really hard work, essentially running a marathon in your
mm-hmm.
bed, like doing the hardest thing your body can do.
Yeah.
And then you're just thrust into, you know, feeding all the time around the clock and never really getting a night's sleep. So I was like telling my husband, I was like, I haven't slept through the night since before we had a baby, you know? And so your body is just, it's at its max, and then the hormones are crazy. And so I totally understand how people that maybe don't have a good support system or are prone to depression or have, you know, a million variables that aren't exactly right in that moment could fall into it. I was like, oh, that's very understandable, because it's just a lot, and it's overnight. It's like you're not you are a mom when you're pregnant, but it's like you're a single person. You feel like your own, and then you just aren't. And then it's like, here's this little thing that is 100% dependent. Can't lift its head, can't do anything without you. And you're thrust into it, and it's amazing, but it's a lot. It's a lot. And so for me, the hardest part for me was actually breastfeeding. It was because I'm sure you know, but I wasn't aware. Like I see my friends who have had, you know, multiple kids, or they've had a kid for a year, and they're like, you know, they're like cooking eggs, washing the dishes, breastfeeding at the same time. It's like nothing. And then to me, it was so painful and hard at the beginning. I didn't know, like, I'm seeing all these seasoned pros at the end. Right. I've never seen the beginning of breastfeeding. And it was very hard for me. I had about 3 weeks of excruciating pain. And it was like a hot knife. I mean, it was so painful. So that was really hard for me, because I was very determined to do it. And again, I was like, women do this. This is like, other women have done this, so I can do it. You know, like I'm joining the team, and I can do what they can do. And she actually didn't have a good latch. And so I was in more pain than I should have been in. But I thought she did. Like I have, so on one side, my nipple is smaller. And so she just had a different latch on that side, which I just thought was because my anatomy is, you know, I was like, my anatomy is weird, so she's doing it weird. And it was actually, she could have done it better. I just didn't know. And so I finally, after 3 weeks, went and saw a lactation specialist, and she's like, oh, you just angle it this way. And then it's like in 2 days wasn't hurting anymore. And I was like, oh, I'd literally been like weeping. I mean, I would cry every single time she would breastfeed. I would just cry the entire time because it was so painful. But I was like, I'm going to do it. And you hear that it's hard, and it is, but the other one, it hurt, but it started easing up and it got less and less. This one was just, this left nipple was just hurting. But I was like, it will go away. And then finally, again, had to get humble, had to go get help. Like, this is the lesson. Mm-hmm. And then it got better. And after that, it was much better. But having all the hormones and just the excruciating pain and the no sleep, if I didn't have, just tools to be like, okay, I could definitely see how people could have a challenging time. But also, to answer your question about like, did it bring us together? 100%. I've been telling Jeremy, the whole love languages thing. I'm like, mine are changing. Like mine are so changing. Because acts of service, I always, literally my whole life, I'm like, why is that even on there? That's so boring. Who cares about that? And now when I can't even brush my teeth, like if he'll hold her for 5 minutes while I go do something or take a shower, I'm like, oh, so grateful. Like it's the best thing ever. So it's totally changing, and just getting to see him as a dad is so amazing, because you see someone as, you see your boyfriend and you're like, he's hot, he's cool, I like him, we have fun. And then as your marriage partner, it deepens, you're like, oh my gosh, we're one now, we're doing life together, we're sexually intimate, we're doing all the things, and we're bonding, blah, blah, blah. And then seeing them as a father, it's like next level. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing you have a tender heart towards my daughter, which we made together, and she looks like you. And I'm so great. I'm so grateful that you're going to raise her. Like, there's just a whole new level of just, it's like, I just look at it and I'm like, no wonder this was God's design. It is so good. Like, it just makes sense. I'm just like, we weren't meant to just be us the whole time. Mm-hmm. We were meant to make other people and have a family, and like watching him be the head of our family and like just take care of our daughter. It's so cool. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Or like at night, when he's putting her down and I'm like, can't even open my eyes, and he's rocking her for, 20 minutes because she won't go to sleep. It's just like, the self-sacrifice that he, that you can't make as much outside of parenthood. Like it ups the game. Like there's a lot of, I'll say there's a lot of opportunity for sacrificial loving and giving in parenting that there wasn't before. And so getting to be that for each other and try to like outgive each other, it's just so cool. I feel like I love him more than I ever have. It's really awesome. And I mean, we couldn't have sex for 6 weeks. So it's an interesting dynamic all the way around. It's not what you're used to, but it's really cool. It's very, very, it's great. And then even having sex is different because it's like, we did 7 weeks after. So just this week we started and even that is totally different. It's not like, ooh, we're being hot and sexy. He's like, am I hurting you? He has to be so gentle, like it's like a totally different, and it's like this loving, sweet, like he's being so tender and gentle and like a little scared. He doesn't want to hurt me, but it's not like it's ever been. Just everything changes in honestly the best way. It's so cool. My personal experience was great. And I just think God designed it really well. It's like, this is the next step and it just feels correct. It's good. It's very good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. I feel like that's like what I'm least prepared for. 'Cause like I've studied birth and labor and like what comes after immediately, like within the first few hours, but like beyond that, I'm like, I have so much to learn. Like I was telling my mom, I don't even know how to swaddle a baby correctly. So, and
girl, you get the Velcro swaddles. Okay. Okay. Can I just give you like the best tip? Cause I can't swaddle either. Jer was always doing it and she just gets stronger and stronger. So her name is Noah. It means like motion. She's just a mover. Like she's like feisty. She just is. She's our daughter for sure, but she will not stay in a swaddle. And Jeremy could do it really, really. And I just couldn't. And I was like, I'm a failure. But we got these little Velcro ones. Amazing. So just don't be doing the origami all night long with your baby. You won't be wanting to at 3 a.m. anyway. Get a Velcro swaddle. Save yourself.
Someone else just told us too, don't get Don't put your baby down in like the cute outfits that button all the way from the top, all the way to the bottom. She's like in the middle of the night. The last thing you want to be doing is like,
that's right,
every single button, trying to get it right. Like just zips and easy things. That's it.
Oh yeah. No, Noah is like a diaper baby. She's naked in her diaper. That's it. Swaddle at night and naked all day. That's like, yeah. There's a lot of things you learn, but it's different for everybody. But and that's the thing, you can't prepare. It's exactly like birth. Like you cannot prepare for it because your baby's going to have a totally different temperament than mine. And they're going to have different, like at the hospital, they told us to wake Noah up every 2.5 hours to feed her. Just because, they're like, her stomach is so small and But she was she was a chunk when she came out. She was 9 pounds and she's a great eater. And honestly, like every night when I was waking her up, I did it for the first couple nights. I felt terrible doing it. It didn't feel right. It didn't sit right with me. Mm-hmm. And for other people, they have to because their babies are smaller and that's what they need. And like for me, I felt bad doing it. And then finally, Jared was like, what if we just let her sleep until she wakes up when she's hungry? And I was like, no, we can't. That's not what the doctor said. I'm like, I want to do this right. And he was like, let's just try. And I was like, okay. And I went to bed so much anxiety. I'm just like laying there like stiff, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to kill my baby. Mm-hmm. But it ended up, she sleeps for like 6 hours, wakes up super hungry, eats a big, dinner, whatever it would be, breakfast, meal. goes back down to sleep for another like 4 hours. And that's what we've been doing the rest of the time for like 2 months now. And she is totally healthy. She's like bigger than most babies. She's, you know what I mean? And so for us, it was just like, you kind of have to listen to your spirit and of course, listen to doctors. But if it starts feeling wrong, what you're doing, you don't have to do it. And I'm like, I don't now have to untrain my baby to wake up every 2 hours. I don't have to train her to sleep. She's a good sleeper. And that was just natural for her. And also I'm like, sleep is really important for babies too. So you just have to kind of do what works for you. And it's going to be different. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be you and your husband kind of, like pushing each other and praying together and listening and, and you're going to have a totally different way of raising him or her than what I'm doing, but it'll be right for your baby. And that's what's so cool and scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I know it is very unreal and very mind-blowing. Yeah. It's like, we're just going to have a baby and then our whole life is different forever.
Yes, It is. Oh, I know, dude, there were so many moments. It's totally surreal. I remember because we have like big, mirrors in our room. And I remember, maybe like a week after I'm literally wearing Depends, like adult diapers. Cause that's what my friends told me to wear. I can't wear a shirt because my nipples hurt so bad. It's like pain. I can't wear a shirt. I still have a belly because I'm like post-pregnant. I literally look like a giant toddler. And I was just looking at Jeremy in the bed and I was like, what is life? What is life right now? I was like, what is even happening? You know what I mean? Like you're delirious. And I was just like, it's the craziest thing, but it's also like the best. I mean, we literally like the first time she like pooped, she didn't poop for a little while. And I'm like, I don't know if my breasts are working. I don't see any poop. She finally pooped. We like had a dance party at like 4 a.m. She poops and we're dancing. It's just everything becomes very different and special in its own crazy way. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited for you guys, especially because this is something that's dear to your heart. You're just going to have such a great time.
Yeah. We're really excited. Cool. We're super excited.
Yeah. It's awesome.
And it's also, it's so nice hearing like I wanted to hear some positive birthing experiences before I gave birth because it's so easy to like, especially I guess in my profession, to hear the negative ones or the ones where I listen to tons of podcasts and like I listen to a lot of research and the latest statistics, and there is like a birthing crisis in the United States, and there's a lot of people's births that don't go very well. And I was talking to some of my coworkers the other day, a few doulas that I work with, and they're like, you just need to listen to some like positive birth stories, people who, they're like, it was great, and then take that in with you when you go.
Totally. Yes. And I was going to say, absolutely take that testimony. And the thing is like, so much of it has to do also with just like your frame of mind. Cause also, I mean, it could have been really bad and scary. And I honestly think if I had given into fear, I would have had to have a C-section because I was so close. I was like an hour away. Yeah. But I just was like, I can't stop my body from doing what it's meant to do. And I could tell that my fear was doing that. You know what I mean? Like I had to be so on it. It was like, I was like having, I like had girlfriends that I was like, please pray for me, like be praying for me. And I could like feel their prayers. You know what I mean? Like I literally was like, I need this. Like and I'm not someone that asks for help very well, but I was like, I need you to be praying. So I just had girlfriends that were like awake around the clock with me, just praying. And the thing is, like, no matter what, I just kept thinking, even if this goes as poorly, you know, quote unquote, poorly as it could, right? Like the scariest, whatever, you know, like critical, but I'm like, at the end of the day, I believe that it's going to be me and my husband and this new person. And I'll forget about whatever this is. Like, this is a moment that I'm going to pass through, and it can either be great or not great. But at the end of it, there's a human being on the other side. And you know, I'm sure you've talked to many moms. It's like, you forget the whole, like, it was very painful, but I don't feel connected to that pain at all. You know, like you just don't, you forget almost immediately. You're like, I'm ready to have another baby. And like, you know, it's just like, because what comes out of it is so rewarding. And so like focusing on that, you know what I mean? Like, I just kept thinking, like, I had this little picture of her from one of her ultrasounds, like her 23 week or whatever. And you could see her face. It was the 3D one. And I just kept thinking of her little face. And I was like, I'm going to meet her. So it doesn't really matter how I feel right now. I mean, it does, sure. But that's not the most important thing. And just like thinking of it in a hopeful way, just, I really think like you can't be in hope and fear at like the same time very well. Like one will always outweigh the other. And so I'm just like trying to hold on to hope and let the fear dissipate, you know, and you're going to do so great. Like cause I, you know, just tell like your spirit, you'll be fine. You'll be great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Cause I feel like, I mean, as long as the priority isn't just pain avoidance, because
Right.
then you're just like thinking of what you're afraid of. If you're thinking about like bringing someone into the world, you'll do great. You're going to do so. And you probably know so much more than most people going, like, you're way more prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'll do great. I'm not
So
scared
great.
of the birthing process at all.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
And it's really nice because I'm birthing with the people I work with. So I know all the midwives really well. And I know,
that's so awesome.
I feel very comfortable there because it's where I work.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I feel really
that's
comfortable,
awesome.
but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to share the story when it happens and to meet whoever is in my belly.
Yes. That will be so amazing. So you guys have names picked out for a girl?
Yes. And we do have a few for a boy, but we're not like in love with one of them, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally. Well, it will be perfect.
So, yes.
That's so awesome.
Yes.
You have to let me know. I'm like, I'll have to check up on your Instagram or something and see what it is. That's so fun.
We're excited. Well, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing this and just for being so open and vulnerable and taking time. I know being a new mom, it's like you said, you just don't have tons of time to yourself. So thanks for coming on.
I'm shocked that this worked out. I told Jared, I was like, if she needs to be fed, you just bring her in here. I was like, it's a mom podcast. We'll just go for it. And she might have slept the whole time.
Oh, wow.
Miracle.
Nice. Yeah, that's really, I know. I'm still figuring out. I'm like, I might just be postpartum breastfeeding through my podcast. I don't know.
Keeping it real. Keep it real.
Yes, for sure. Where can people find and follow you at?
So probably the best is Instagram, and it's Britt, Britt, Carolina, which is my middle name, Karolina, Byrne, Byrne. And then I also have a YouTube channel. You can just search the same name, and I have a little YouTube. Me and my husband.
That's so fun.
And yeah, it's fun. We haven't done it in a long time, so they're not updated, but there's a ton of videos on there. And thanks again. It was just so nice to meet you.
Yeah, you
and
as well.
I'll be praying for you. It's going to be so awesome to meet your little person.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll have all of your information in the show notes as well for everyone listening. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again.
So nice to meet you. Thank you.
It's such a fun conversation with her. It's so nice when you can connect with somebody and you know that they have similar beliefs and morals and lifestyle, and you can just kind of have those open conversations in love. And so it was so much fun to be able to talk to her, and I'll definitely be following her journey. Don't forget to check her out. So next week, we have a pelvic floor therapist on. I'm a huge advocate for pelvic floor therapy. It's something that I started in my pregnancy around 21 weeks, and I saw a really big difference, even in those earlier months, just with not having to go to the bathroom all the time, and just strengthening my core and learning how to feel my pelvic floor before I couldn't really tell if I was doing the exercises right. And there's so much information about Kegels out there that you don't know what's what. So it was very awesome for me to start the pelvic floor therapy before I had the baby, because it's definitely a journey I plan to continue after. So next week we'll be talking with Melissa from Mommy Berries and talking all about pelvic floor therapy. And next week I would be 42 weeks. So if I haven't had the baby by now, by next week, I will for sure, because I do not plan on going past 42 weeks. I will be induced by then, which is something that I'm hoping really, really doesn't happen. So, but I will keep you guys up to date and look forward to our baby story episode, which will have to be coming out soon because, like I said, I'd be 42 weeks next week. And so there's definitely going to be a baby around that point, which is so exciting. I'm so excited to continue this process with you guys and learn. Like I said, I'm looking for a baby wearing expert to come on. So if you guys have any recommendations, please send them my way. I am going to do another breastfeeding episode. I know that we just did one. We just did one at the beginning of August. But I found somebody else that I would love to talk to as well. And just kind of bringing on another sleep expert, occupational therapists, all the people to help us throughout this, well, to help me throughout motherhood and this beginning journey, because I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, if you guys missed out on any of the episodes during the craziness going on in the world during April, May, and June, there was some awesome content in there. Make sure that you go back and listen. I know people are getting some time back to themselves. I know somebody just reached out to me and said, I'm finally able to catch up on podcasts because I'm able to go back to work now. And so I know people's schedules were all crazy. So make sure that you check out those episodes and feel free to write me about topics that you want to hear about guests that you think would have great content to offer our audience. So make sure that you make sure that you reach out to me and let me know all of that information. And if you're listening, subscribe, leave us a review, and don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and of course, our Facebook group. All right, guys, I will have some exciting news for you very, very soon. Love you. Bye.